Good evening. Today is September 27th, 2022. Time is now 5:31 p.m. This meeting of Georgetown County Council is being called to order. I do see that we have a quorum present this evening and want to thank you all for attending our council meeting. We'll begin our meeting with Councilmember Edward Carolina leading us in the invocation, giving us the invocation and leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day in which you've blessed us. Thank you for your guidance. Thank you for wisdom and the support you've bestowed upon us as we begin this meeting. Allow this gathering to engage in meaningful dialogue, to grow closer as a group and strengthen the bonds of communities. Bring clarity to us as we make decisions that will affect the citizens, the businesses, the environment, and the future of Georgetown County. Continue to remind us that all we do as stewards over the land is for the greater glory of you in service to humanity in Georgetown County and humanity worldwide. This prayer is also for peace and brotherhood in Georgetown County, peace and brotherhood in America, and peace and brotherhood worldwide. We ask of all these things in your mighty name, amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Carolina. We move down to the approval of our agenda. Please note that council will receive legal advice during executive session in accordance with section 30-4-72. Is there a motion for approval of our agenda this evening?
So moved.
It's moved by Councilman Newton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Goggins. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda is approved. We have a few special reports this evening. We have a nonprofit spotlight for the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. Alexa Stevens. Okay. Good evening. I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you so much, Council. I appreciate it. My name is Rajan Lewis. I'm here on behalf of the Center for Heirs Property Preservation. I do want to apologize. I do have a slideshow, but I didn't send it in early enough, so I'll just have to read from it. And if anyone is interested in getting the information that is on it, I'll gladly email it out. I'll just get a list of the people. If y'all send me the list, I'll gladly get it out to you. All right, so the Center for Heirs Property Preservation is actually based out of the North Charleston, South Carolina area. And we always start with our mission. We start with what heirs property is. Okay, and so the basic definition of heirs property is that you have land that an owner of record has passed away more than 10 years ago, and the decedent's estate was not probated. So that's what creates heirs property. There was not a proper handing off of the estate on terms of legal documentation. And there's no legal action that's been taken since the decedent's death. All right, so our mission as an organization is to protect heirs property and promote the sustainable use of land to provide increased economic benefit to low wealth family owners through education and legal services. We help families protect and keep their family land while building generational wealth and to grow working landscapes. So a little history about our organization. We got started in 2005 out of the North Charleston, out of Charleston, South Carolina. We were created with a budget of $150,000, and we had a 5-member board. And at that time, we only serviced 4 counties: Berkeley, Beaufort, Charleston, and Dorchester. We started out with a legal service lawyer and a paralegal, and then one staff, that was our staff of the center, with our founder/ED at that time, Dr. Jenny Stevens. 2013, we added our sustainable forestry program, which was created to offer forestry services to landowners. And since our start in 2005, we've actually now served 22 counties and growing in the state of South Carolina. Georgetown is one of those counties. Just to name the other ones, we serve Allendale, Bamberg, Beaufort, Berkeley, Calhoun, Charleston, Clarendon, Colleton, Darlington, Dillon, Dorchester, Florence, Georgetown, Hampton, Horry, Jasper, Lee, Marion, Marlborough, Orangeburg, Sumter, and Williamsburg counties. So how do we do the work that we do? So we have 3 buckets that allows us to accomplish our mission of protecting heirs property and promoting its sustainable use. So prevention is making sure that, families do have that estate planning piece in place, that they can have that proper handover of any estate property or land. Resolution, if there is an issue, we help families to resolve through mediation services, as well as helping them to get their title cleared. And then land utilization. And with that, what we're doing is we have our forestry initiatives as well as our agricultural initiatives that we use to help families to build generational wealth with there. So the main thing to remember about the Center for Heirs Property Preservation is we do not help people sell land. We help them make the most of the land that they have and to keep it within the family as opposed to losing the land. The prevention services, as I mentioned, involve legal and forestry educational seminars and presentations, wills and heirs property clinics, as well as legal advice. Resolution services include family presentations, legal services and advice, and then our land utilization, which I mentioned before, forestry and technical assistance. We also have a landowner symposium, which will actually be taking place on October 8th this year. We have our forestry workshops and woodland community advocate institutes and referral to and coordination of forestry service providers. Now, in terms of Georgetown County, since 2020, the center has completed 3 heirs property and forestry educational seminars with 89 participants. We actually had one last week, and I believe we'll be having another one next week at Mount Zion ME. Ashley? Mount Zion? In November. So if you haven't been able to attend one, we will be having one in November. This year, we've conducted an heirs property seminar here with 15 attendees, an heirs property clinic, which was held on March with 66 attendees, and a wills clinic held on Saturday, September 24th, 2022, which I just mentioned. Our overall impact is that the center has cleared over 290 titles to land with a cumulative tax assessed value of over $16.3 million. 450 forestry participants who collectively own over 30,000 acres of land who have benefited from forestry and educational services from the center. So if you're looking to collaborate with the center or have us come out, we can schedule outreach activities, presentations, educational seminars, and information tables for your communities. We can host wills clinics, drive through or in person, where we actually send attorneys out to do wills on site. We can host heirs property clinics, virtual or in person, and we can also share materials within your communities. And with that, if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer them if there's time available.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from council?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you all serve in like a pro bono role?
Yes, sir. So all the services that we provide are pro bono. We do not charge for any of the services that we do. Our funding comes from local foundations as well as USDA and NRCS for our forestry services. So even our forestry services that we provide, as long as you qualify, those are also provided pro bono as well. We do not charge for any of those services.
Do you go as far as representing folks in a courtroom situation?
Only if it's a non-adversarial. If there is a situation where there is a contested estate, we will not represent somebody. Our main job is to make sure that it's mediated and that when they go to the courthouse, it's really rubber stamp kind of thing as opposed to it being contentious. We don't do contentiousness. That can be a bit tricky. So we stay away from those.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
So far, how's the response been concerning your services here in Georgetown County?
So in Georgetown County, we have had a bit of trouble making traction, just making sure that finding the people to connect us to it. As I mentioned, since 2020, we've only had 3 activities here in county. We'd like to increase those numbers because one way that we do show our worth to the areas that we serve is by increasing those numbers. So if you are interested in having one of those wills clinics or one of those presentations, I'm the guy to talk to, or you can email the center at info@heirsproperty.org, and we can easily get some stuff out here. But everything that we've had has always been positive because we're not coming to take, we're coming to give, and it's not at no cost to the clients.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Any other comments or questions from council? Thank you for making the presentation, and thank you for the beneficial services you provide to the communities. We appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
We move down to our Innovation Award presentation. Mr. Ackerman.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, members of council, I am here tonight and I'm going to ask our award receiver, who is Mr. Stephen Williams, in the audience here, if he will join me at the podium. We're going to present to him tonight an award that we don't do very often. We're eligible to do it, but you've probably heard some in the past, so you may be familiar. This is called our Innovation Award. So Mr. Williams is our GIS manager, and he also handles county assets. He was nominated for this Innovation Award by Director Ray Funny, who's also in attendance tonight. Stephen has come up with a unique method for handling plats. And funny that our heirs property group was just ahead of us, because all land transactions in the county starts with a plat. And that plat will go through several different hands and sometimes back and forth amongst different county departments before it's finally processed and everything's done with it. So Stephen has developed a way. He actually created what I'm going to call, and he might not like this word, a searchable database, where we can take a plat, and instead of having that paper copy floating around all over the courthouse where it could potentially get lost, we actually electronically record that plat, put it in that searchable database. It's indexed in various different ways, and that way each department that needs to work on it can go and pull it right out of that database and do their work on it, and it never leaves that database. And then on top of that, because it's searchable the way he built the system, when a citizen comes in and they're like, you know what, I'd like to get a copy of that plat. Well, what's the tax map number? Well, I don't know. Well, who did the survey? Well, you can look it up by the survey, or you can look it up by the person's name, or multiple different ways. So it's going to benefit us greatly in speeding up processes, keeping things from getting lost, being convenient for our citizens. And on top of that, it didn't cost us anything, because he used some software that we already had purchased, and he figured out a new, better way to build that mousetrap. So for that, he's being presented with our Innovation Award. Congratulations, sir. And if we can, Mr. Chairman, if we can, we'd like to officially present the award and get some photographs, because we love photographs.
Sure. We now have the presentation of Proclamation number 22-27, designation of October 2022 as Fire Prevention Month in Georgetown County. Mr. Ellis.
Good evening, Chairman Morant, members of council. As you mentioned, we're here for Proclamation 22-27, designating the month of October 2022 as Fire Prevention Month in Georgetown County. The theme of this year's Fire Prevention Month is Fire Won't Wait, Plan Your Escape. The emphasis being on smoke alarm best practices, smoke alarm maintenance, and having a home escape plan. This evening, I'm joined by representatives from both Midway Fire Rescue and Georgetown County Fire EMS to present this proclamation to you for your consideration. It's rather lengthy. I can read it if you would like. We need to for the matter of record.
Maybe the last paragraph.
Maybe the last paragraph. I like that because it is rather lengthy. So we'll go with that. Last paragraph of the proclamation is, whereas Georgetown County residents are asked to be responsive to public education measures and should take personal steps to increase their safety from fire, especially in their homes. As we celebrate the 2022 Fire Prevention Month throughout the county, we urge all citizens and visitors of Georgetown County to participate in the many fire prevention activities and efforts provided by the collective Georgetown County Fire and Emergency Services organizations. I can assure you that throughout the month, our Fire Prevention and Division of Fire and Life Safety personnel will be out at schools, churches, various other events throughout the month, providing this knowledge and information to the public so that they can be better prepared and help prevent fires.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mr. Ellis? Okay. Is there a motion for adoption of proclamation number 22-27?
So moved.
Been moved by Councilman Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Johnson. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Oppose? Motion carried.
Thank you. And like the others, we like pictures as well. So if we could take one quick photo with the fire chiefs, that'd be great. Thank you. Members of council, Madam Administrator reminded me that we have not officially introduced you to the new Midway Fire Rescue Fire Chief. With us tonight is Chief Brent McClellan. He's a little over a month on the job, and he's still enjoying it, I think. So he's still here. So welcome him aboard. Thank you for extending us the opportunity to bring him on our team. So.
Thank you. We move down to public comments. A public comment period is included on each meeting agenda and shall be limited to 30 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to no more than 3 minutes. No speaker may yield his or her allotted time to another speaker. Members of the public who wish to address council during the public input period should sign up with the clerk of council before the meeting is called to order. Please note that at the end of your time period, a buzzer will sound, and we ask that you properly conclude your remarks at that particular time period. It's my understanding also that we have a number of people who have signed up to speak this evening, so we ask that you be courteous to them and understand that they will have an allotted time to speak also. Otherwise, you'll be overrunning the time period that's been allotted for the public speaking session. So we ask that you govern yourselves accordingly. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone sign up this evening? How many do we have signed up this evening? I should ask.
Mr. Chairman, we have 16 speakers signed up this evening, so each will have up to 2 minutes to speak, unless you state otherwise, and we will begin with Mr. Gary Weinrich.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, my name is Gary Weinrich. I emailed you the results of a benchmarking survey we conducted of 8 nearby jurisdictions. Benchmarking is a technique used worldwide to learn best practices and improved processes. And this was done only after we had attempted, going back to 2018 and even earlier, to work through the system. We had contacted the planning director at the time, the county attorney at the time, the county administrator, in multiple attempts to resolve the significant discrepancies that exist between our county's comprehensive plan and our zoning ordinance. And for years, we never received responses that were either credible or consistent with state law. And that's why we did the benchmark. And what we found, you received the report, but 3 main things. There was not one jurisdiction that agreed with that compliance with the comprehensive plan is optional, as Georgetown County continually tells its residents. And every jurisdiction except Georgetown County agrees it is absolutely necessary to update zoning to conform with the comprehensive plan. And all jurisdictions except Georgetown County have planning commissions and county councils that support the comprehensive planning process and implement it as state law intends and requires. So this is very frustrating for grassroots organizations and the people we represent, including those in the room tonight, who has nothing more than for Georgetown County officials to adhere to and properly enforce all laws and ordinances. Ms. Teresa, do we have 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. So let me just share some of the specific statements we heard during the interviews with the county attorneys and planning directors. Number one, the comp plan is an ordinance that's required. Okay, quick. So to wrap up, we hope you'll decide tonight that Georgetown County has spent far too many taxpayers' dollars defending lawsuits that result from not following the law. And instead, we hope you'll work with the residents to implement the letter and intent of the Comprehensive Planning and Enabling Act, as our neighbors are already doing. And thank you very much for the few extra seconds.
Beverly Thompson.
Good evening, Chairman Morant and council members. I'm Beverly Thompson, and I live on St. Flight Road, and I'm addressing the rezoning. I also have family property that butts up to the property under the proposal for the new solar power plant. And I am here to strongly oppose the rezoning of our community, changing us from a low-density residential area to a public, semi-public industrial area will change our community drastically. Changing this will not only open doors for the proposed solar power plant, but it will also open the doors for industrial or other industrial or government projects. These projects will be put our water supply, our agricultural land, our hunting, our fishing, which is our food supply, our health, our wetlands, and our rivers in jeopardy. Our whole environmental, our resources will be endangered, not to mention the decrease it will cause to our property value. This will change the way of life, not only for our community, but for all of Georgetown County citizens. Georgetown County as a whole will be impacted by this. So don't destroy our way of living. We do not want our residential community property rezoned. Thank you.
Ann Lambert.
Good evening. I'm a concerned property owner in the Lambertown community. Excuse me. My property is on Wyndham Drive and adjoins the property of the proposed solar farm. As I stated at the last council meeting, I have yet to be contacted by anyone from Silicon Ranch. I even sought out the representative that was here at the last council meeting, gave her my contact information, and I still haven't heard anything. So in the meantime, I've done my own research. After exhaustive and informative research, I came away with some concerns and conclusions. Some of my concerns are health risks, fears about health and safety of our citizens, loss of land suitable for agriculture and forestry, risk to wildlife and destruction of critical wildlife habitats, removal of trees and native plants, storm runoff and soil erosion, aesthetics that would harm property value. Council, I have a question for you, and hopefully when we meet with you guys again, you can answer this for me. I would like to know how much time you guys have invested in researching the future of our community. You're our voice. We voted you in to speak for us. In conclusion, this does not generate enough electricity. This solar farm does not generate enough electricity to justify the destruction of our environment. Once again, as our elected officials, I implore each of you to vote no to the rezoning of this beautiful community. Please protect our home for future generations. I conclude with these words: no solar farm in our backyards.
Larry Snyder.
Good evening, thank you. I've been to a couple of the recent planning commission meetings, and so often we bring up and not just in those meetings, but in discussions in the community and so forth, we recognize the need for affordable housing. And I thought to myself, what could I afford at $11 an hour? And it's not much. So you look to other resources to fill the gap because you neglect to pay your employees. $11 an hour is not enough for anybody as a public employee. And we are long past the point where we have to raise those salaries to a reasonable amount as a public employee, I can afford proper housing for myself and my family. Thank you.
Deborah Greggs.
Good evening. My name is Deborah M. Greggs. First, let me thank you to the entire County Council Committee for giving me the opportunity to speak on Pettigrew and Parkersville issues. I stand before you all to say, please don't approve the project plans for the 41 Pettigrew and 47 Parkersville townhouses. If these plans are approved, those who relocate to Pawleys Island and those who are currently living there will be subjected to disappointment and low quality of living. These developments will result in ponds. Pond leads to various forms of wild animals, such as alligators. Again, I know this because I have 2 retention ponds next door, and my neighbors are alligators. Our community currently consists of single-family homes filled with love of close-knit communities. Adding these multi-family homes will be detrimental to our community and will take away the beautiful bumper sticker motto that Mr. Glenn Cox wrote: Pawleys Island, no better place, and Pawleys Island, just this side of heaven. These bumper stickers we cherish almost all of our lives on our automobiles, our front porches, and even the big oak trees in our front yard. Again, I say to you, please vote no for no more retention ponds on Pawleys Island. Thank you.
Michael Green.
Hello, my name is Michael Green. I reside at 533 Parkersville Road, Pawleys Island, South Carolina. We have resided there for 27 years. up on Pettigrew. We're right on Parkersville, on the corner of Parkersville and Coachman. They want to put a road in on Pettigrew. There's a lot of wetlands up there. It's just going to destroy all the natural habitat with these retention ponds. It's just bad. It's just, we vote no on that in our neighborhood. Thank you.
Sam Thomas.
My name's Sam Thomas. I'm speaking on the rezoning of the St. Delights 2,000-acre block there. We need to vote no on the rezoning. This Lambertown is our best place, and Lambertown is our piece of heaven. There's many wetlands in there. It's known on the map. The Army Corps has already noticed that there's a lot of low-lying areas. Rezoning that land, bringing in large developments is only going to cause issues for the whole surrounding communities. Project gets out there, large project like that fails, or a hurricane comes through, like coming through Florida right now and wipes it out. These big-time corporations that aren't from here, they don't care about anything that's going on here. They're just going to file bankruptcy, leave it on the taxpayers, which is all of you, everyone in this room and everyone watching. And they're going to leave. We're going to be left holding the bag. If it kills off all the wildlife, all of the wells, all the septics go bad, then Lambertown's going to fold up. That whole corner, all the way from the Santee to the shrimping out in Winyaw Bay. It's going to be no good. And it's just going to be a trickle-down effect. So vote no on the rezoning St. Delight Road.
Arnett Graham.
My name's Arnett Graham. Thank you for hearing me. I'm from the Saints Delight area and here concerning about the rezoning of the 2,000-acre parcel. After my family and I have looked and researched, we feel that it is just not in the well-being for our family in this area to have this rezoned and developed as the solar panel farm. As my other neighbors and I understand that how it will change our lifestyle and the environment and what we moved out there for. I recently moved there from Georgetown in the city to moving out back to the country is what I called it. And now I'm having to look at that way of life changing for us. And so I just ask that you consider all the things that have been said here tonight and that the residents in this area would like for you to vote no for the rezoning of the Saints Delight parcel. Thank you.
Robert Lambert.
I oppose any of this building of this solar panels and so forth at Saints Delight area on Lambert 1 and Lambert 2. I went through Nam. I saw herbicide spray. A lot of friends didn't make it back. We don't need a large area like this, and I'd wish that the county would put an ordinance where you can't spray but so much acreage with herbicides. We have too many people that are becoming now on heart trouble and et cetera. I would appreciate anything the county can do to stop some of this stuff. Money doesn't mean everything. We, the people, mean to be good and to help each other, not kill each other with herbicides and so forth. So I object to this property being built.
Vincent Davis.
Good evening, Council, Chairman Morant, and other city members of the board. My name is Vincent Davis. I'm the president of the Pawleys Island Civic Club. We have two things on our agenda. Now, the Civic Club knows the lawyers will be working out the legal side of this. We're here to represent the day-to-day people who have asked to make sure that their rights are treated fairly and equally. We know putting these townhouses in the heart of our minority community is not a fair and equal gesture to our community. So we will move on to the second thing on our agenda, the Master Water Drainage Plan. Now, this is even more important as we see what's going on in the tropics right now with these hurricanes. And we know that the infrastructure of drainage in Pawleys Island, Waccamaw Neck, is flawed and does not work. And we know that there will be heavy reconstruction of Highway 17 in Pawleys Island in the next 3 years to repair these things, pipes that are not working for drainage. If there's any council that will sit there and vote for the development in our community without even taking the time to review the Master Water Drainage Plan, not even taking the time to present the Master Water Plan to the community. We lose one life because of this in our community. That will be a vote that we can never forget. Thank you. I rest the rest of my time.
Rhett Holden.
Mr. Chairman, members of council, Madam Clerk, my name is Rhett Holden. I'm a lifelong resident of Georgetown, Georgetown County, and a little over 20 years ago, my family and I purchased a piece of property in Lambertown. When you look at the map where the solar farm is going to be, there's a little donut hole right in the middle, and that's where I'm at. I'm right in the middle of everything that's going on out there. Like I said, I've only been out here a little over 20 years, and I don't have roots like a lot of people in this room do, generations and generations, and generations to come. But it's going to affect us in more ways than one. It's going to affect everybody. So, just not real sure about what's going on with the solar farm and everything else, but it's going to affect everybody. It's going to affect everybody in this room, everybody in this county.
Blake Floyd.
Chairman, County Council members, and Madam Clerk. My name is Blake Floyd, Jonathan Blake Floyd, and I'm here representing for the amended use in Woodside Village, representing the owners in Murrells Inlet. And I just want to say that our family has been here half a century, and there are some concerns with the HOA that we've been trying to address, and I provided the material once we go through the reading. But I also have a commercial property management business that manages over 48 small businesses in the Grand Strand area. So I work one-on-one with small business owners, the community, local officials, and our family certainly cares a lot about preservation, and we certainly try to give back in all areas because we understand how important the community is. So I just want you guys to please keep that in mind. We're trying to meet all the necessary criteria and requirements of the county, and trying to ease the concerns of some of the neighbors as well. So thank you.
Robert Waldron. Mr. Waldron. Amy Brandon.
Let's talk money, council, because we know that we're out here because we need money in Georgetown County. The solar plan is, proposed to come to the Lambertown community. So I asked, how is it going to benefit Georgetown? Because we're not opposed to solar power. We're opposed to the solar company, who's not even have an entity in Georgetown County, damaging 2,000 acres of our prime real estate, of our land, of our wetlands, that you've heard everybody say tonight. So I asked people, Amy, you've got a hard fight ahead of you. It's going to bring in over $300,000 in revenue and taxes a year. That's $300,000, y'all. When you got people moving out, people dying, nowhere to live. I mean, we're talking about you can't afford to pay people in the county. I know we need money coming in. And I know at the end of the day, you've got to really decide what's best for the community at the same time. But we deploy you. Please, find somewhere else for this. We don't want it in our community. Everybody here that's opposed to the solar power plant, please stand up. You see this? We had a meeting in our community. We have 100% people who do not want it. We don't want it, council. And it's your job to represent us. We asked you to do your due diligence. Find somewhere else. We've requested freedom of speech for the applications, for everything. We ask that you keep deferring this until this information is supplied to us, because we do not feel that county has done everything properly. We will be fighting this, and we ask you as council members to please keep deferring this if you will not vote no until we can get our information. We understand that you're going to have a community meeting. The community meeting is just going to be with Silicon Ranch. We know that Silicon Ranch has communication members. They're going to try and sell us. Council is, the administration is supposed to be there. If you want to know what the people want and really what's coming on, we deploy each and every one of you to come out. Take tours with us. We'll get our four-wheel drives and we'll take you down the property. We'll show you what's going on. We'll show you all the trees that are still on the property and all the wetlands that will be destroyed. Thank you for your time.
Johnny Ford.
Good evening, Chairman Morant and council members. My name is Johnny L. Ford. I'm speaking this evening in place of my son, Pastor Johnny A. Ford. He's unexpectedly taking care of some work in Conway that he's obligated to do. So now I will read my son's remark. As you consider the two high-density proposals for Parkersville, it is important to understand the neighborhood. Parkersville is one of the oldest communities in Polish Island. It is characterized by low-density, single-family homes along narrow, often unpaved roads. We are one of a few minority communities that remain, and we have a valuable history and heritage to protect. We are at risk of being completely destroyed by high-density projects like these that are not consistent with the characteristics of our community and push current residents out because they can no longer afford to stay. Our comprehensive plan designates Parkersville as low and medium density. We do not have the infrastructure in place to support high density development like these. This is a very important issue to the resident of Parkersville. We would respectfully ask our council to adhere to the comprehensive plan and deny these proposals. That was from my son, Johnny A. Ford. I myself was born and raised in Falls Island, and I've lived here all my life, except for the few years that I was away in the military. There was a lot of changes over the years, some good, some bad. And I thank you and I also ask that you protect our neighborhood and deny these high density plans.
Lynn Ford.
Good evening to the chairman and council members. I stand before you as a member of the Parkersville Development Alliance, and although I wasn't born in Parkersville or South Carolina, I've lived in Pauley since I was 12, moved away for a while, and returned 26 years later. So my roots run deep, as far back as my great-grandparents and beyond, and that's on both sides of my family. Please understand that we are not opposed to development. We simply want what's equitable and fair. We want what those in positions of leadership and power might take for granted, home ownership. We don't want 56 or 53 expensive townhouse apartments for rent crammed on top of each other. The proposal plans show a lack of critical, in-depth thinking or planning about the needs of surrounding residents. If you're going to expand into a community, take into account the current nature, culture, and history of the community and help those residents in their quest for home ownership. When I drove down to see where the proposed units would be located, I was appalled and deeply saddened. These projects are proposing to dump townhouses next door and into the backyards of longstanding residents, disrupting their lives, exposing them to traffic, stormwater, and flooding issues. We have seen it elsewhere in our community and are sick and tired of it. We want development that is going to be environmentally sound, meets the needs of the community, that benefits existing and future residents, that doesn't negatively impact the lives of existing residents, and that doesn't add to gentrification. We are concerned about the future of our historic African-American community and want to protect the little that is left. Why are we often asked to sacrifice or decide whether we want to focus on affordable housing over flooding issues or over environmental impacts? Let's pretend that you're considering a new development for Hagley or Prince George. Would you approve these Osprey and Regatta plans for those communities? Please follow the lead of the Planning Commission and vote no. Thank you.
Cindy Person.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. My name's Cindy Person. I'm here this evening representing families in the minority neighborhood of Parkersville, many of whom have land that actually adjoins these proposed subdivisions. I also represent the Pawleys Island Civic Club and the Parkersville Planning and Development Alliance. Much of this land is heirs property, and we heard a little bit about that earlier. And one of the unfortunate consequences of heirs property is that with each passing generation, the land becomes more vulnerable to developers who want to capitalize on it at the expense of the neighborhood. Lynn Ford mentioned to you how different the reality of it looks compared to the pretty PowerPoints that we see here. There is no question that these projects would be devastating to this neighborhood. The Planning Commission already denied them both. We would ask you to please follow their lead. I've submitted a detailed letter to you. I'm going to hit the highlights because I don't have much time. The council enacted an ordinance in 2015 that designates these two parcels as medium density. Both of these high density proposals violate that ordinance. We understand that these properties are zoned general residential and that GR can permit high density, but it's not a requirement. Other provisions must be considered in determining the maximum density allowed within GR, including the comprehensive plan. Georgetown County ordinances provide that where land development ordinances conflict, the most restrictive applies. Over and above that, state law requires that zoning must be in accordance with the comprehensive plan. This is a very important decision that's to many people this evening that will permanently affect their lives. And we respectfully ask you to please follow the direction and decision of your Planning Commission. Thank you very much.
That is our final speaker.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And thank you all for your comments. Please note that we have approved our agenda, and therefore, on our consent agenda, there are 3 matters were approved by virtue of the agenda approval process. Contract number 19-034, task order number 19 for landfill drive resurfacing, procurement number 22-027, court construction and resurfacing, and RSQ number 22-049, C-Fund Civil Engineering Services, a 2-year term. We move down to our public hearings. We have a public hearing regarding ordinance number 22-29, an amendment to the future land use map for 58 acres located in the 2200 block Browns Ferry Road, TMS number 02-1009-004-00-00, from low density residential to public semi-public. The floor is now open for public comments. Is there anyone wishing to make public comments regarding ordinance number 22-29?
Thank you. So I see this ordinance is on the map, and it was at the last meeting. And, I see that this is going to be over in the Browns Ferry area. And I just have to go on to public comment and say that you're rezoning this, and we understand that it's going to be for the jail. If I'm not correct, please correct me. But we have to remember that the landfill is right down the road. And the landfill is really going to be having a lot of damage from these solar powers if you approve it. Because the landfill will have to house all of the damaged solar powers. And so when you rezone this land, if you're able, if this goes through and you build that jail there, just imagine to all the damage that's going to be happening to the Browns Ferry people. I mean, we really have to take into consideration, council, the big picture. There's so many moving parts to this. And I see that you're also going to try and rezone the road and, pay the road into the landfill. I mean, the money that's going into just all of this county that has to be put into this, and I just go on the record and say, this is not our solar plant. It's not just affecting the Lambertown community. It's affecting all of Georgetown County.
Any other comments regarding, during public hearings? Seeing that the public hearing is not closed. We move down to third reading of ordinances. Ordinance number 22-29, an amendment to the future land use map for 58 acres located in the 2200 block Browns Ferry Road, TMS number 02-1009-004-0000, from low density residential to public, semi-public. Ms. Richardson.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman and council. I will, as we did last time, go over items 10A and 10B together as they both relate to the rezoning and the future land use map amendment for the detention center property. This is a request from Georgetown County as agent for the property owner to rezone the 58 acres in the 2200 block of Browns Ferry Road from the Crown Point Plan Development to Limited Industrial, or LI. We haven't had any changes since we reviewed this at second reading. I'll remind you that Again, this tract is proposed for the new detention center for the county, and the proposed limited industrial district does allow for public buildings and facilities as permitted uses. The future land use map shows this area as low-density residential, so we would need an amendment to that map to facilitate this request. Planning Commission held a public hearing in July. No one came forward to speak, and the commission voted 7-0 to recommend approval for the rezoning. They also voted unanimously to recommend approval for the future land use map amendment to public, semi-public. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Are there any questions or comments from council? Any questions from council, I should ask? Ms. Richardson, where this property is located, is it in the area where the new jail is, or the old jail is right now, the present jail? Detention center?
It's essentially across.
Across the street?
Yes, sir.
From the detention center? Okay. Is there a motion regarding ordinance number 22-29?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ordinance number 22-29.
A motion from Councilman Anderson. Is there a second?
I second, Mr. Chairman.
Second from Councilor Newton. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. And ordinance number 22-30, is there a motion regarding ordinance number 22-30?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve ordinance number 22-30.
The motion from Councilor Anderson, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Carolina. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. We move down to second reading of ordinances. Ordinance number 22-31, to rezone one parcel totaling approximately 8.796 acres located on the northern corner of Martin Luther King Road and Pettigrew Drive. TMS number 04-0413-047-0000 from 1/2 acre residential to Flex Design District. Ms. Richardson.
Yes, sir. This request is from Old Kings Highway LLC. This is for 8.8 acres to be rezoned from 1/2 acre residential to the Flexible Design District. The proposal is for 22 single-family home sites, and the property has frontage on Martin Luther King Road, but the intent for the development is to have the ingress and egress for the subdivision to be off of Pettigrew Drive, which is a county-maintained street. This development will create approximately 220 annual daily trips, which did not meet our threshold to require a traffic study. We do not feel that this would be spot zoning based on the size of the tract at 8.8 acres and the surrounding single-family home sites that are within the size range of these proposed lots. A portion of this property was originally surveyed as street right-of-way and was deeded over to DOT. That portion of the property is intended to act as a wooded buffer between this development and the street. The applicant also proposed a 5-foot wetland setback against the 1.14 acres of wetlands that are on the site. The tree survey that was submitted showed 2 grand trees. That's over 24 inches DBH on the tract. They are both located within the wetland and will be retained. This property is not in a regulated flood zone either on our current or proposed future maps. The future land use map for this tract shows it designated for medium density residential. The proposed project has a net density of 3.91 units to the acre, which is agreeable with the comp plan and will not need a map amendment. The proposed design and the rezoning to a flexible design district will allow for the 22-unit development to have private restrictive covenants. It will also eliminate numerous curb cuts onto Martin Luther King and Pettigrew Street, as they will only have the one main entrance on the cul-de-sac that's shown in the plan. The county pedestrian and bike path plans indicate a future path along Martin Luther King Road, so the development should indicate an easement area for that, for the installation of that future infrastructure. The plan proposes single-family housing on lots that are greater than 7,200 square feet. The original submission was at 6,000. Those lots have been increased to 7,200 square feet with a minimum lot width of 60 feet. As we said, the future land use map shows this as medium density. Medium density is defined as being between 2 and 5 units. So at 3.81, they are within that. Staff recommended, if the FDD is approved, the following conditions: that the wetlands buffer be increased to a minimum of 10 feet, final approval from the necessary agencies, a tree removal plan to be reviewed by staff, and again, that none of the grand trees would be removed, and an easement to be provided to the county for the future multipurpose path. We held a public hearing on this issue back in August. One neighbor came and spoke against the request with concerns about traffic and wildlife in the area. The Keep It Green group spoke in favor of the proposed project, citing thoughtful single-family development at this location, and the commission voted to recommend approval with a unanimous vote. I'm glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Are there any questions from council for Ms. Richardson? Hearing none, is there a motion regarding ordinance number 22-31?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we do approve ordinance number 22-31.
The motion from Councilor Goggins, is there a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Second from Councilor Newton. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. We move down to ordinance number 22-32. An ordinance to amend the Woodside Village Plan Development located on the west side of Highway 17 bypass at the southwest intersection of Bellamy Road, further identified as TMS number 41-0119-003-06-00, to add car wash facilities to the list of permitted uses. Ms. Richardson.
Yes, sir. This is a request to amend the Woodside Village Plan Development, and as you stated, the request is to add a car wash to the list of allowed uses in the PD. The PD is located on the west side of Highway 17 bypass at the intersection of Bellamy Road, and it goes south to Causey Road in Merle's Inlet. This is a PD that has both commercial and residential uses, and it was approved in 3 different phases. Phases 1 and 2 have been constructed, and this parcel is in phase 3. This phase is approximately 3.04 acres, and the owner is proposing to subdivide out a little over 2 acres that front Highway 17 in order to construct a car wash on the site. He's proposing to use the existing curb cut off Highway 17 and have an additional curb cut off Causey Road. Encroachment permits will be required from both DOT and the county for these curb cuts. The remaining almost 1 acre to the rear will be subdivided out, and that is where the existing restaurant/bar on the half shell is located currently. That lot will have its frontage on both Causey Road and a paved access road that runs to phase 1 of the PD. This proposal is for a 1-bay, 120-foot tunnel car wash and associated vacuums and some office space as well. The proposed site plan meets the setback requirements of the PD. It meets the parking requirements. In addition to the stacking that you see there in their site plan, they also have to have 2 additional parking spaces. We wanted to mention too that this site is often used as overflow parking for the On the Half Shell restaurant. So we have also asked the applicant to address that with the site plan submission, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. The site plan shows 5 protected trees over 24 inches on the site that will remain. They will also be required to retain an additional 21 trees or 209 inches of diameter brush height on the site after development. A level 1 buffer is required between the drive aisle and Highway 17. This building and any accompanying fencing is of course located in our overlay district, so they will need to meet the overlay architectural requirements. This tract is not located in a flood zone, and this property is designated as commercial on the future land use map. So this request does comply with that. A car wash is in keeping with the adjacent commercial uses and service uses in the immediate area. And the conditions that staff proposed are listed in your report. The Planning Commission held a public hearing in August. No one came forward to speak, and a motion was made to approve the request that passed with a 5-to-1 vote. I did want to mention the parking plan that we required in condition number 4 for the restaurant. The applicant has submitted a plan for the restaurant to show additional parking to make up for the overflow parking that'll be removed with the installation of the car wash. Staff will need to review a final plan of that, but again, we've provided that as a condition of approval.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Any questions for Ms. Richardson? Is there a motion regarding ordinance number 22-32?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we do approve ordinance number 22-32 to amend the Woodside Village Planned Unit Development.
Thank you. There's a motion from Councilor Goggins for approval. Is there a second?
I second, Mr. Chairman.
Second from Councilor Newton. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Please note for the record, Councilor Anderson opposed. We move down to ordinance number 22-33. To rezone 2 parcels located on Highway 17 bypass at its intersection with Coquina Avenue in Mers Inlet. TMS number 41-0119-032-02-02 and 41-0119-032-02-03 from a flex design district to general commercial. Ms. Richardson, keeping you busy tonight.
Yes, sir. This is a request to rezone the 2 parcels that you mentioned on Highway 17 bypass. This is at the intersection of 17 and Coquina, again in Merle's Inlet, from the FDD district to a general commercial district. The surrounding zoning to this tract is basically all general commercial to both the north, south, and the east. Back in August of last year, this council approved an ordinance that rezoned this tract that was originally general commercial to the flexible design district. And that was to allow for a brewery and associated recreational amenities. I think the plan was well supported and approved by Planning Commission and Council. It allowed for 13,375 square feet, and that included a brewery/restaurant, a pavilion facility, and repurposed shipping containers for vendors and such on the site. Unfortunately, the applicant is now requesting that the site be rezoned back to its original rezoning of general commercial. The project is no longer viable, is no longer planned for the site, and this FDD is so specific in its permitted uses and in its site plan that it would be difficult for another use to accommodate those restrictions, which is why they are asking for the GC zoning again. The setbacks under GC will be the same as they were for FDD. That includes the 90-foot setback off Highway 17. This site does have a large number of large oak trees that the FDD intended to save. With our latest changes to our tree ordinance, it will require that 13 of the trees on the tract that are considered grand trees could not be removed without a variance, and it will also require the retention of 323 inches of diameter breast height on the site for tree canopy. The project is also located within the commercial corridor overlay, so any buildings on the site will be required to comply with the architectural requirements. The site does abut residential on one location on the east, where we will require a level 3 buffer. This property is also shown as commercial on the future land use map, so no change is needed to facilitate the request. While we do feel it's unfortunate that the previous project is no longer planned, the request for commercial is in keeping with the future land use map, and we do feel like our amended tree ordinance will afford greater protection for the trees on this site than it would have when it was previously zoned general commercial. We don't think spot zoning is an issue due to the adjacent commercial zoning. At the public hearing in August, we had one citizen that spoke against the rezoning, stated that the property was not ripe and that the FDD should be amended instead of the GC zoning. The commission then voted 5-1 to recommend approval for general commercial zoning.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Richardson?
Ms. Richardson, I have one. So we're basically right back where we started in August of 2021, is what you're saying.
Basically reverses the FDD.
After all that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have a comment. I've given this some thought, and it is, I think I understand what's going on here with the owner. But in looking particularly with regard to our new tree ordinance, I think that Merle's Inlet would be in much better shape if this was zoned in general commercial, and will limit some of the things that could be done with that property. And it's right there on 17, so that's the way I'm looking at it, just for everybody's information.
Okay, thank you. With that being said, is there a motion regarding ordinance number 22-33?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 22-33.
The motion for approval from Councilor Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Councilor Goggins. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. We'll move down to first reading of ordinances. Please note that the following ordinance will be read into the record by title only. That's ordinance number 22-34, amendment to the fiscal year 2022-2023 budget ordinance. Okay, we're coming down to reports to council. Site plan review. 41-unit multifamily development located east of Pettigrew Drive, approximately 877 feet south of its intersection with Martin Luther King Road in Paulus Island. TMS number 04-0203-155-00-00. Ms. Richardson.
Still here. This site contains 6.87 acres and is currently zoned general residential, or GR. The request here, as you said, is for now a 41-unit multifamily development. It's a townhome development, and this is a site plan review for that request. This is located east of Pettigrew Drive, south of its intersection with MLK. The reason we are here for this request is the GR section of our zoning ordinance requires that multifamily developments with more than 10 units or a net density of 5 units or more per acre have a site plan review by Planning Commission and County Council. We send out adjacent property owner notices to those within 400 feet as our ordinance requires, and we advertise the site. This review is limited to compliance with the land use regulations of the county as the use has been designated for GR zoning. The request here is for a 2-phase multifamily development with two-story, 4-unit multifamily buildings in phase 1 and 6 2-story multifamily buildings in phase 2. This is for a total of 41 units, and that is a reduction of 12 units from what was originally presented to the Planning Commission earlier. The number of units shown meets the minimum lot area per unit requirements found in the GR section of the code, and the total net density proposed here has been reduced from 8.5 units per acre to 6.1 units per acre. The proposed plan complies with the setback requirements for multifamily developments and exceeds the 50-50 pervious-impervious requirement. The site contains a small amount of isolated wetland, 0.02 acres. Those will remain undisturbed. We require 2 parking spaces per unit. Those have been provided on the plan. They also have to provide a level 2 buffer along the northern and southeastern property lines adjacent to existing single-family homes in the area. No trees over 24 inches will be removed, and the applicant will be required to retain a total of 69 trees on the track or 687 DBH inches on the site. Their plan currently shows the retention of 799 inches of DBH, which exceeds the requirement. This project is expected to generate 246 annual daily trips, which does not meet our traffic impact analysis threshold, but the very next item on your agenda is also being proposed by the same applicant. And when you add those 2 projects, you get 528 total ADTs. So we did ask the developer to do a traffic impact assessment, which is provided in your packet, which showed no significant adverse impacts to be created by the site-generated traffic. Access for phase 1 of the development will be provided off Pettigrew Road. There is a proposed new 50-foot right-of-way for the development that will need to be an all-weather surface and will also require a street name. This tract is not located in a flood zone. Staff did recommend approval of the plan conditional on the items you see there in number 15 in your report. A public hearing was held in August. 14 people spoke at that time in opposition to the project, citing the items you see listed there, including traffic, drainage, high density, lack of infrastructure, tree canopies for the site, a lack of dumpster pads and guest parking, and a lack of an area for mailboxes. After significant discussion on these topics, a motion was made to deny the project, and that motion passed with a vote of 3-2. After the meeting, and based on comments received at the meeting, the developer did revise the site plan, which is the one you have in front of you. He increased the drive aisle, which was a fire department requirement. He included mailbox clusters on site. He included dumpster pads, added 10 guest parking spaces, and the tree canopies are shown on the site plan that you have in front of you. As I said earlier, the project has been decreased from 53 units down to 41 units. The density went from 8.55 to 6.81, and the new pervious-impervious ratio is 60/40. They're also planning to leave an existing vegetative buffer along the front of the track. And in closing, I think this meets the minimum requirements of the GR section of our zoning ordinance. It exceeds it in some cases. And as a site plan approval only, I did want to remind you that, of course, this is not approval for construction plans. Those conditions we've listed there, if this site plan approval is given, would be reviewed by staff prior to any development or construction on the site. And I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Any questions for Ms. Richardson from council?
Mr. Chairman, I've got a few questions.
Yes, sir.
So our job here is to either approve or disapprove the site plan.
Yes, sir.
These are advertised as townhouses, is that correct?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Okay. Is there anything in the International Residential Building Code that says that townhouses have their own lots? And I know they have to be separated by a foot or whatever. It's a firewall from the top of the peak of the roof down to the foundation. So do you know about the individual lot land ownership?
Correct. For building code purposes, they'll be treated like a single-family home. Like you said, they do have to have a firewall between the
Right.
units. Each townhome unit will receive a separate building permit.
Okay.
It's just a matter of which building code they fall under, but these will be, essentially, they're reviewed like single-family units.
All right. We're still, in my opinion, way too high on the number of units on this piece of property for townhouses. They're going to be a townhouse is not it's not a condo, it's not an apartment, it's a townhouse. Folks are going to own, they're going to own, along with their building structure, they're going to own a little property. And I think it's a mistake for us to approve 41 units on a piece of property that's what, 6.78 acres, you said?
Yes, sir, 6.87.
And if I look at the future land use map for this property, it should be zoned as medium density. And well, we can't even call these multifamily units because they're really not, correct?
Our ordinance refers to them as townhouses, and they are listed in the same section under multifamily. So the requirements for townhouses and other multifamily developments are the same.
Well, I might take issue with that.
In terms of density.
I hear, if it is what it is, but that's something that I believe we need to look at for townhouses because they are individual residences. They've got their own land and they've got their own building, although they are connected by a facade. I just believe that in this case, we're just packing too many townhouses, quote unquote, into too little of a parcel of land. I'll leave it at that.
Ms. Holly, I've got a question or two as well. Just to confirm, the density, the unit count, everything does conform with the existing zoning?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. How long has the zoning been in place on this piece of property?
I've been asked that before, Mr. Goggins, and I cannot say for certain. It's been since zoning was enacted in the mid-70s. I certainly can say that the zoning hasn't changed there since I've been here.
Okay.
Which goes back to 2005.
With all due respect to some of the concerns of the community and my colleague, I've been either as a professional planner and architect bringing zoning requests before the county for more than 30 years, I've certainly sat up here now for almost 8 years. And it's always been the tradition, the precedent, and the understanding under the law that if the zoning was a given classification, the developer was meeting the requirements and conforming to those requirements of that zoning classification, then that was the consideration that prevailed. And to do otherwise is not only breaking from many decades of precedent, tradition, and understanding of the ordinance and the law, but I think may invite all kinds of controversy and lawsuits. So I would respectfully suggest that and argue that we really don't have a choice here but to approve this this project as submitted, provided it conforms with all the other requirements. In reading the Georgetown County Comprehensive Plan, the very first page, it says that the Georgetown County Comprehensive Plan is not a law or an ordinance. And that's not what the zoning ordinance says. So I think we've got to respect the rights of property owners who've have vested interests, and those that have come to the table with an understanding of what our ordinances and laws are in order to maintain credibility as a body and to protect our ordinances. I would also like to ask our counsel, Mr. Watson, is it your understanding that the comprehensive plan has precedence over the zoning ordinance, or?
Has precedence over the zoning ordinance?
Yes, sir.
No, sir, that is not correct. The comprehensive plan, by its own language, own terms, says that the Georgetown Comprehensive Plan is not a law or ordinance. Comprehensive plan also states something to the effect of that it is the intent of the Georgetown County Comprehensive Plan is to provide a framework for the future growth and development of Georgetown County. So it serves as a framework. It is, as our staff has often said, a guide. They've been ridiculed for stating that, but that's correct. They are correct in that. So, but the ordinances, the zoning ordinances, or those planning matters that have been adopted as ordinances would serve as the law.
Well, with all due respect, opinions may vary in terms of the merits of this proposal, but I actually, as a body, I don't think we have a choice but to approve this plan if we want to uphold the ordinance. So, Mr.
Chairman, I can't hear the councilman speak.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that wraps my questions anyway. I don't know if there are others or not.
Any other?
Yes,
questions?
right here. I have a few comments. And I'll start with a former rather than later. I designed homes with Anderson Home Design for 10 years here. I have designed townhouses. That's why I know those were rhetorical questions that I asked Ms. Holly about land ownership and physical separation between the properties and separate deeds for each one. That is the case. That's why they have their own deeds. Number two, as far as the comprehensive land use plan, I have spent considerable number of hours over the last year and 8 months or whatever it is I've been on council. And you're all aware of this because you've gotten a lot of cards and letters from me on this. And is the comprehensive plan the law and the zoning ordinances must follow? I'm afraid there's no case law out there one way or the other. And as far as the plan, it does say you may, a county or a municipality may use ordinances or they may not use ordinances, but they do by state law have to have a comprehensive plan. So, and I have been in conversation with our general counsel at SCAC, that's the South Carolina Association of Councils. He called me on Monday because I've had a lot of questions for he and his people. And we spent about 30 minutes on the phone, I guess. And there are more than a few counties in this state that don't even have ordinances. They have to have a comprehensive plan, but they run their counties with 0 ordinances. I'll just leave that out there, and I'll close it up with what I just said. Thank you.
But we do have ordinances. That's the difference.
We do have ordinances, but as far as has it been tested in court yet? It has not. As far as does the plan take precedence over the ordinances, and should the ordinances mirror what's in the plan? And that's to be determined, and I think we're going to find that out.
Do we have any other questions for Ms. Richardson?
Yes, Mr.
Okay, Councilman Newton.
Ms. Richardson, the developer, I guess, purchased this property for investment building under the current ordinance that we have.
Our applicant in this case is the engineer who is the agent for the current property owner. So I'm not sure at what point this property owner
So since we've received information on this development, is it common in the industry to, once a piece of property has been purchased, that a county goes back and downzones it or changes the ordinance when it was originally purchased under A ordinance and we change it to B ordinance?
in our experience here in Georgetown County, we have done downzoning of properties, but we have only done it in instances where the owners have requested it or agreed to it.
Agreed to it?
Yes, sir.
I take it and the council can respond to this. I take it if we downzone or kept somebody from developing a piece of land that we had it zoned for, that we would be opening ourselves up for a lawsuit. Is that correct, counsel?
It depends. That would bring in the vested rights laws under South Carolina statutes, and whether someone, property owner, has triggered what will be called vested rights kind of depends on where they are. I mean, there's certainly just simply buying land can be engaging in land speculation, but there does come a point where, depending on the property owner's actions and their investment in the property, then yes, they have vested rights, and to downzone or change zoning at that point could open the county up to lawsuits.
Thank you.
I have a comment on that. In this case, I don't think anybody's asking to downzone anything or anything else. All we're doing here is either approving or disapproving a site plan. And my point is that I have no problem with these townhouses being there. I'm sure they'll be very nice. They'll be individually owned, but there's just too many of them on too little of a space.
But if he
That's my
falls,
point.
if he, Councilman Anderson, if he falls within the ordinance to develop the land, with the number of units that's presented to us, would that not be downzoning if we refuse the site plan that he submitted?
I guess that could be argued either way, Raymond. I understand.
I mean,
I
know you've been in the
You and I
business.
are up here talking about this, and I agree you could probably argue that either way. But the fact of the matter is, like I've told you before, we're reaching critical mass over here on the Waccamaw Neck as far as property density, our quality of life with traffic and everything else. And it's just time, the developers need to understand that we're looking out for our citizens. They're reaching out to us to slow things down as far as density. Everybody's got a right to build something on their property, as long as they're just not going overboard, and that's my opinion. That's it. Thank you.
Ms. Richardson, I guess I need a point of clarification, and just following up on some of the comments that were made and the questions that were presented to you. And Councilor Anderson basically saying everyone has the right to build something on their own property. Let me ask, because I'm somewhat confused a little here. Is it my understanding that the property owner complied with all the county requirements that were set forth for them to comply with?
Yes, sir. The site plan complies
The
with
site plan.
general residential requirements. Of course, we have the conditions for you listed there in number 15. They will need some final approvals and some other further reviews by staff. But the site plan in terms of density, buffers, trees, as it's laid out, meets the requirements of our ordinances.
And the site plan was submitted to the planning department for approval?
Yes, sir.
And upon your approval, I guess you have a checklist or something to that effect to show what all the compliances are.
Yes, sir.
I guess my confusion comes into play is if you have someone there who has complied with all the regulations that have been set forth by county, why are we listening to this? I mean, why does it come in front of council?
A requirement in our zoning ordinance in the general residential section that states that multifamily developments over 10 units have to have their site plan reviewed or overseen basically by the planning commission and this body for approval. That was something we did in our ordinance several years ago.
Okay. So in this particular one, then you have, what is it, 8 buildings?
2 bays. Yes. Yes, sir.
8 buildings in this particular one. And each one of those buildings encompass what would be considered a house spot? Or can be considered as what is considered a house spot? I guess you don't have the square footage of the particular buildings themselves.
Sir, I don't know the square footage of each one. But there are multiple units in each building. From 3 to 6, depending on the layout.
Okay. I don't have any additional questions. Anyone else have any follow-up questions? Questions for Ms. Richardson? And let it be questions this time, not comments.
Site plans do require a certain amount of open space too, so presumably they did comply with that.
Yes, sir, that's kind of wrapped into the density numbers. And in this case, our tree ordinance requirements also required additional saving because we're not going to allow them to remove the larger trees. So they were required to save those. We had them show those canopies, and I do think a lot of that is what caused the reduction in the number of units that we see here today.
So to simplify, either to council or to you, Ms. Richardson, the comprehensive land plan is basically the roadmap, and the ordinance is the law.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. With that being said, let's move forward now. Since there have been a lot of comments on this particular site plan review, we will probably need to have a roll call vote. Starting from my right, Madam Chairman, Madam Clerk. We'd like to have a roll call vote beginning from my right on this particular motion, regardless of what the motion may be. So regarding site plan review. Is there a motion? Is there a motion regarding site plan review?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we do approve site plan review.
The motion from Councilor Goggins for approval. Is there a second?
I second, Mr. Chairman.
Second by Councilor Newton. Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, will you call for the vote, please?
We will call for the vote. Councilman Anderson,
No.
Vice Chairman Johnson,
Yes.
Chairman Morant,
Yes.
Councilman Goggins,
Yes.
Councilman Carolina,
Yes.
Councilman Newton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We move down to site plan review. 47-unit multifamily development located, I'm sorry, back on that particular motion carries. Site plan review, 47-unit multifamily development located east of Parkersville Road, approximately 425 feet north of its intersection with Martin Luther King Road and Pauley's Island. TMS number 04-0416-004-00-00. We'll hold up one moment, Ms. Richardson, until.
Please, Mr. Chairman, I have a hard time hearing
No,
Ms.
we're holding
Richardson
up.
with all this background noise.
Yes, we're holding up until the exits have been made. Okay, Ms. Richardson.
Yes, sir. A request from the same applicant as the previous request. This site contains 13.69 acres and is also zoned general residential. In this case, the applicant is proposing to subdivide 7.9 acres that front on Parkersville Road in order to construct a total of 10 two-story townhouse buildings that contain 47 three-bedroom units. Now, the rear of the tract that is closest to Highway 17 contains 5.79 acres of wetlands that will not be developed. All these buildings are proposed as three-bedroom, two-story units, and the number of units as shown meets the minimum lot area per unit requirements of the GR section of the zoning ordinance. The total net density here has been reduced from 9.84 units down to 8.25 units per acre. Proposed plan complies with the setback requirements for GR, and they're showing a pervious-impervious ratio of 67% to 33%, which exceeds the 50-50 requirement. This tract, the 7.9 acre tract, once subdivided, contains 1.56 acres of isolated non-jurisdictional wetlands, which will remain undisturbed. Parking spaces are provided to meet the minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit. This project will require a level 2 buffer along the southern boundary because that is where there are existing single-family dwellings. No trees over 24 inches will be removed, similar to the last project. And in this case, the applicant is required to retain 634 DBH inches of trees on site after development, and they are proposing to maintain 860 inches. This proposed project is expected to generate 282 annual daily trips, and the same traffic analysis applies here. That makes up the rest of the 528 total trips I mentioned in the previous report. The access for this development will be provided with a 24-foot drive aisle off Parkersville Road, and an encroachment permit will be needed, in this case from Georgetown County, for the 2 proposed curb cuts that are shown on the plan. The track is currently located outside the flood zone in a flood zone X. Based on our proposed maps, which are not in effect yet, 2 of the buildings will be partially located in an AE12 flood zone. Staff recommended approval of the plan conditional on the item stated in number 16. I would add an approval from U.S. Fish and Wildlife. We did have a conversation with them about this project, and they indicated they would need some sort of permit from that department as well. So I would add that to number 16. The Planning Commission held a public hearing on this item at the same meeting. 12 people spoke against the project at that meeting with the same issues basically as the other project. There was a vote to deny that site plan as well, and that vote passed 3-2. Similar to the last plan, the developer submitted a new plan to address the comments. The drive aisle is now 26 feet. They've included the mailboxes and the dumpster pad. They've added 15 guest parking spaces. They have shown the tree canopies on the plans. The number of units has been reduced from 56 to 47. And the impervious ratio has also been improved to 72% pervious for this project. And I will be glad to answer any questions you have on this project as well.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Ms. Holly, what was the acreage on this? I missed this. You probably mentioned it. How many acres is this one?
The total acreage for this site, Mr. Anderson, is 13.69. In this case, they're proposing to subdivide out 7.9 and leave the wetlands in the back. The back piece that contains the wetlands will be separated out.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further questions for Ms. Richardson from council?
I've got a comment. I liked your idea of doing a roll call vote. We ought to do that more often. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have one on this particular vote just to keep in compliance. We're going down to site plan review. Is there a motion regarding site plan review?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve site plan review.
We have a motion for approval from Councilor Goggins. Is there a second?
A second.
Second from Councilor Newton. Any discussion? Madam Clerk.
We will call for the vote. Councilman Anderson,
No.
Vice Chair Johnson,
Yes.
Chairman Moran,
Yes.
Councilman Goggins,
Yes.
Councilman Carolina,
Yes.
Councilman Newton.
Yes.
The motion carries 5-1.
Thank you. Motion carries. We'll move down to the approval of minutes. Our regular council meeting of September 13th, 2022. The minutes have been included in all of our packages. Is there a motion regarding the minutes of September 13th, 2022?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion from Councilman Newton for approval of those particular minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Goggins. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. We're now moving to executive session to receive legal briefing regarding litigation involving contractual matters pursuant to SC Code annotated section 30-4-78-2. Is there a motion to move into executive session?
So
Been moved by Councilor Johnson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Anderson. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion carries. We are now moving to executive session. Okay, we are back. Is there a motion to move back into open session?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilor Goggins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Newton. Any discussion? All in favor of moving back into open session, please raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, we're now back into open session. Please note for the record that County Council discussed a contractual matter and received a legal briefing during executive session. No votes were taken by council during that executive session. Is there any further business to come before council? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, we do have one quick matter of business. As you all are aware, tonight is Truman's last night with us here.
Oh, no.
And Truman is moving on to other adventures, but this is truly a bittersweet moment. And many of you are new as council members, but long before we had an entire media team and all of this equipment over here, long before COVID, before our live stream, we had Truman on a pew with an iPad sitting right there, and he controlled everything. When the mics squealed or individuals squealed that they couldn't hear council speaking, Truman was in control of all that. And he's been doing this he's been with the county for much longer than the 8 years that he has been here with us in council meetings. So this is just a token of our appreciation, Truman. We will miss you and have fun at the races.
Speech, speech, speech.
Thank you for your years of service to the county. We really appreciate you. And enjoy yourself at NASCAR. Okay. Any further business coming before council? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Councilor Anderson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Newton. Any discussion? All in favor? Please raise your hand. Opposed? Seeing none, we stand adjourned. Thank you. Thank you all.